In today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint this adorable winter scene using digital gouache on your iPad. This is a step-by-step tutorial, and this is meant for anyone who has some experience in the app Procreate. Hello and welcome to Color with Kendi. On this channel, we paint digital watercolor and gouache on the iPad in the app Procreate. All of my tutorials are step-by-step and are meant to be followed along, and I have a list of all of the supplies that I'm using today in the description and the pinned comment, so be sure to check that out. So the first step, I am going to open up the Messy Gouache medium-sized canvas, and this is the blank canvas. So I'm going to turn this layer off, and the first thing I'm going to do is rotate the canvas because we are painting in landscape mode. I don't typically do that, but today's painting is landscape mode. Tap right at the top, and then we're going to insert the color palette as well as the traceable. So I've imported the traceable and I've also imported the color palette. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to that traceable layer, tap on N, and then reduce the opacity. So the first thing we're going to do is paint in the sky. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the paint here layer, and then I'm going to select the brush first that I want to use. So I'm going to use brush number 16, dual color thick paint A. So this is a dual color brush, and you can use two colors of your choice for the sky, and depending on how much pressure you apply, you'll see more of one color than the other. So let me just show you with the overhead camera how this brush works. So depending on the amount of pressure you apply, you can get different results. So with light pressure, do you see I'm getting this sort of texture, and I'm lifting my pencil several times. Now, if I use heavy pressure throughout the stroke and did this, it would be a slightly different result. So I actually have two colors that I've selected here, one that's lighter and one that's darker. And depending on how much pressure you apply, you'll see one over the other. So with the same brush, you can create two different looks. And what I like to do with this brush is to vary the pressure, lift my pencil, and apply pigment like this with short strokes. So then you get this painterly effect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to fill in the sky. I'm going to use some areas of light pressure and some areas of heavy pressure. And I'm trying to avoid white caps. Then I'm going to go to the smudge library and make sure that I'm on smudger number 5. And then I'm just going to gently smudge out some of these areas with size 30. So I wanted to show you how the smudger works with the overhead camera. So let's say I have two different colors and I've selected brush number 5. Depending on the direction in which I smudge, I will get different results. So my advice is to avoid smudging like this. Because if you smudge like this, then everything becomes flat and you don't really get that interesting painterly look. So I'm just going to undo that. And I'm going to show you. You just want to smudge with light strokes and move the pigment in the direction that you want. You can also smudge with curved strokes too. So depending on how you use the smudger and how you use the strokes, you can get more interesting results. Okay. So I think I'm happy with that. I like the fact that there is some color variation. Tap on plus and create another layer. So for the clouds, I'm going to go in with a slightly different brush. So I'm going to go to the brush library, and then I'm going to select brush number 10, dual color wet brush B. The wet paint brushes are not as thick as the thick paint brushes. They have a lot more water, so it's a little bit better suited to something like clouds. So with the overhead camera, I wanted to show you how this brush works. So I'm just going to show you on top of this so you can see. So with light pressure, you get something like that. And with heavy pressure, you'll get something that's a lot more flat. And I'm going to go up in size and really get interesting results with lighter pressure. So with a lot of these brushes, you want to use lighter pressure to get interesting results. Now I'm going to show you with the clouds. So I'm just going to erase all of that. So I'm going to use light pressure to lay down that pigment and then lift my pencil several times and then lay down more pigment. So do you see I'm getting this interesting texture a nice painterly texture, and you can always smudge out any of the overlaps if you don't like them. So the next step is to paint in the tree. So I'm going to bring back that traceable, I'm going to turn it back on, and then I'm going to tap on the brush library and I'm going to select brush number 14. So let me show you this move with the overhead camera. I'm going to zoom in, and basically you want to start from the top and then move outwards. So you're starting with light pressure, heavy, light, and then it will create this sort of taper. And then for the center of the tree too, you can go with some strokes that are downwards like that. So just continue to use the traceable as a guide and create multiple strokes, lift your pencil several times to create the trees. Okay, for the next step, we're going to paint in the snow. So let's do this in another layer. So for the snow, let's go to the brush library. And for this one, I'm going to select, maybe I can select brush 10 again, the same one that we used for the clouds. Okay, so that's that first layer of snow right there. We can adjust that, but let's just lay down the pigment. So that's our first snow slope. Let's create another layer, tap on plus, and then call the snow slope in the back. So the base colors for the slopes are done. Now we can continue to do the base colors for the rest of the elements, and then we are going to add more texture to the snow slopes later. Okay, so now let's go to the layers panel, tap on plus, and we are going to start to paint in the foxes. Brush number 16. You can use 16 or 17 depending on your style. 17 is similar, but it's a little bit more dry. If I use the same pressure throughout, heavy pressure, it would be quite flat. There would be no color transition. It would just be very flat. That's not what we're going for. We are going to vary the pressure, heavy pressure in some areas, light pressure in others, and lift your pencil. So I'm going to start out with the main color of the cottage, the reddish brown. So what I'm going to do is zoom in here. I'm going to select this color right here as my main color, then tap on the color menu, and for the second color, I'm going to tap on that. I'm going to select this color right here. Okay, and for the brush, I'm going to use this brush, brush number 16. What else can we do? Base colors. We can add the base color for the chimney. What else? Let's paint in the smoke that's coming out of the chimney. There's another brush down here. Grainy and hazy brushes. There's Messy Grainy A. I think that is a really great brush for the smoke. So I'm going to press on that. So I'm going to show you this brush over here so you can actually see it a lot better. So depending on how much pressure you apply, if I apply really light pressure, it's more transparent, right? If you apply heavier pressure, you'll get more pigment. So it's something like that. So what I'm going to do is with really light pressure, create that chimney smoke. And I'm lifting my pencil several times. So for the plants, I'm going to pick this as my main color right here. So you can use any one that you like. I'm going to use brush number 50. This is dual color dry detail. So I'm going to zoom in and let's test it out. I think I can go up in size a little bit. So as you can see, it has a little bit of that dry edge, and I think that will give our plants a little bit of an interesting texture. Okay, and then we have some plants here. So I want to go in with a darker color for those. So I'm just going to do that. And then for the berries, I don't want them to be dry. So I'm going to pick brush number 47, which is dual color thick detail B. And vary the pressure so you get some areas that's a little bit darker and some areas where it's not. So you get some color variation. As you can see, there's some color variation there. And oh, the moon. Let's do the moon. So let's tap on plus and add another layer. So for the moon, I am going to pick one of the brushes here, dual color bristle A. So I'm going to zoom in. I always have a lot more control if I'm zoomed in, and lay down the color very carefully. So it's not flat. It has a little bit of texture in the center. And for the moon glow, we're going to use the same brush that we used to create the smoke. So let's go back to the brush library and let's go to brush 31. And then with very light pressure, very light, just start to create a circle. So I'm going to go to the smudge tool, and this time I'm not going to use smudger number 5. I want to use smudger number 8. Smudge those edges outwards. Now we have finished pretty much all of the base shapes. We do have some more base shapes for the cottage, but I'm going to consider the detail and do that later. What I want to do now is I'm going to start from the top of the painting and then work my way down and start adding more texture and more details.